When soldiers in the Second World War faced winter campaigns, they weren't fighting just the enemy. They were fighting the cold ground that stole heat from their bodies faster than the air ever could. Many veterans recalled that frozen earth was just as deadly as bullets or shells. Men had to learn quickly how to sleep on ground that was little more than ice, and how to keep themselves alive with almost nothing. What they came up with was a mix of desperation and ingenuity. Tricks so effective that survivalists today can still use them when camping in freezing weather or facing emergencies without proper gear. Soldiers learned that the ground kills heat faster than the air. One of the first lessons troops learned was that insulation beneath the body mattered more than blankets above. The frozen soil acted like a sponge for heat, drawing warmth away. Soldiers in Russia, the Ardennes, and even the mountains of Italy layered anything they could scavenge under themselves: pine boughs, straw, rags, even old uniforms from the dead. Modern survivalists can apply the same principle by gathering dry leaves, grass, or cardboard. The ratio mattered. At least 6 in of natural material between the body and frozen ground could mean the difference between frostbite and survival. Soldiers used fire-heated rocks to keep the body warm all night. When wood was scarce and the cold unbearable, soldiers heated stones in a fire and buried them shallowly under their bedding. The rocks radiated warmth for hours, preventing hypothermia. Care had to be taken to avoid cracking stones or setting bedding alight. So earth was often piled between the stone and the blanket. For survivalists, this technique works even today. Place fist-sized stones near a fire for 45 minutes. Bury them under 2 in of soil or sand, then bed down on top. It gives a steady warmth without the danger of flames. Soldiers dug shallow trenches or snow hollows to cut the wind. In open fields, wind chill was often worse than the cold ground itself. Soldiers carved shallow depressions in the earth or dug into snowbanks using the walls as natural barriers. By lying inside these hollows, men reduced exposure to wind and trapped a pocket of warmer air around their bodies. In a modern context, even scraping a trench 6 in deep and lining it with leaves can make a night outdoors far more bearable. Snow shelters, if properly vented, can hold temperatures just below freezing, even when the air outside is far colder. Soldiers, well, they relied on buddy warmth when supplies failed. One of the simplest but most effective hacks was just sleeping back to back or side by side. 2 men would share body heat, conserving calories and energy that would otherwise be lost to the cold. Accounts from both German and Soviet soldiers describe entire squads huddling together like a single living mass. For survivalists today, this principle still holds true. Sleeping in pairs or small groups with a shared blanket or tarp really multiplies heat retention. The key though was trust and discipline. Nobody moved or the warmth was lost. Soldiers turned wet clothing into insulation rather than just discarding it. When men had only one uniform, they couldn't throw it away if it became damp, right? Instead, they dried clothing with body heat. Soldiers slept with wet socks against their skin, letting their warmth slowly evaporate the moisture. They'd stuff jackets or trousers with dry grass to make a sort of crude padding. This added a bit of bulk and trapped air, which was actually the real insulator. For modern use, stuffing clothing with crumpled paper, dried weeds, or even plastic bags can turn a thin jacket into a much warmer shield against the cold. Soldiers improvised sleeping mats from whatever gear and weapons they had. Without proper bedding, men would spread rifles, packs, and even helmets on the ground before lying down. Those hard surfaces provided a barrier against direct contact with the frozen earth. In a desperate situation, this could prevent heat loss just long enough for them to rest. For today's survivalists, a backpack, rope coils, or even stacked wood can serve the same role. Honestly, anything that breaks contact with frozen ground buys you those critical hours of warmth. Soldiers used fat, grease, and alcohol as internal heat sources. Medical records show troops in Russia and Finland were often issued high-fat rations before bedding down. Butter, lard, or bacon gave slow-burning calories that generated body heat through the night. Some units drank small amounts of strong liquor to dull the cold, though this was dangerous if overdone since alcohol can reduce circulation. For a modern survival approach, eating nuts, cheese, or fatty foods before sleep helps maintain warmth far better than a carbohydrate-heavy meal. Soldiers timed rest in short cycles to avoid deep freezing. On some nights, men could not risk staying asleep for long. Veterans described setting watches where half the squad stayed awake while others rested, then rotated every hour or 2. This prevented anyone from entering deep sleep where body temperature naturally falls, which could lead to hypothermia. Modern survivalists can adapt this by planning sleep watches in extreme cold, waking regularly to check fire, body condition and surroundings. Soldiers never wasted body heat once they captured it. The last and perhaps most important hack was conservation. Once a soldier managed to trap warmth, he guarded it fiercely. Blankets were tucked tightly, mouths and noses kept inside scarves to recycle warm breath, and boots pulled under covers to stop frostbite. In the field, this principle is still golden. Once warmth is built, whether from a fire, food, or physical movement, it must be sealed in with insulation. Losing it meant starting from zero, and in freezing weather, that was often fatal. Wu soldiers faced some of the harshest winters on record with almost nothing but grit and ingenuity. Their sleeping hacks were not luxuries but lifelines created under pressure and tested in conditions few of us today will ever endure. Yet these same methods remain invaluable for campers, survivalists, and anyone who might one day face an emergency in the cold. By learning from the past, we gain tools that outlast technology and remind us of the resilience of those who came before us. If you found these forgotten soldiers' secrets worth knowing, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this with others who respect history and survival knowledge. The lessons of the past are only useful if we keep them alive.